So in this tutorial, we're going to make a 3D style backdrop for a thing. You've probably seen the examples, if not annotations. Lovely. Right, now then, so we're in GIMP at this point, and using the curves tool, which can be found under the colors menu, to alter a photo to areas of high and low contrast, which is going to give us some nice scans in Inkscape's trace bitmap function, which is okay. So just export to JPEG there, and then import it into Inkscape here. There it is. And then using the trace bitmap function with the colors option clicked and stack scans, just using the preview to decide how many scans to do, depending on how it looks like in the update. And then just do the stack scans thing. When you save the SVG file, be sure to delete the JPEG that you scanned out of the file before you import it into Blender, which is what we're doing here. And that gives you the ability, because it natively supports SVG files, as a rule, Blender does, you can now pick the layers of that SVG file apart that you just, so all them stacked scans that you just did in Inkscape now can come apart, and that's what gives the structure of the rolling backdrop style effect. So now you just need to fiddle with it until it looks right, really. You can't choose which one to pick up when it's in like that flattened out state that it arrives in. So you just need to pick them all apart and then organise them by hand, sort of thing. Just use the blue axis arrow to do it, because then they won't move out of registration with each other on any other plane, which in this incident is what you want. What we're going to do eventually is we're going to get this stack built up nicely, and then we're going to get another SVG file, this one of a black rectangle, and that will come in and be scaled to become a big backdrop style layer. And then we're going to put a camera facing directly down on the stack that we end up being happy with after all this fiddling, you can see. And that camera is going to be animated to move along the thing over a period of time. And that's what will give the effect, because that's exactly what it is. It's a 3D rendering. It's a 3D image just of a 2D vector image that's been spaced out, really. So it's very simple to do. One of the I managed to work this out myself, and I'm not by any means a Blender whiz like some people are. This was just something I figured, that could probably work, and it did. So that was happy days. Now I'm sharing it with you. Aren't you lucky? So yeah, just lowering the stack down here now, probably to make life a bit easier, because that grid generally helps with lining things up, especially if you use the views. There's you can go into top view and stuff. I'll be using that extensively to test this thing out, I imagine, at some point. Yeah, there we go, gone into top view just there. And so that will give you some idea of how your project's gonna end up looking. That's not including the shadows that will be cast by all the other bits. At this point I haven't manipulated the lamp. So now it looks like we're ready to put the background in. So yeah, just gotta pick the rectangle tool in Inkscape, change the colour to black, and then draw it out, save it as an SVG, and that's the simplest way you can do a black background. I think there's probably ways of doing it in Blender, making a mesh with a plane and texturing it with things, but this is a good cheat. And it works quite well, because I've done two already. So yeah, that's the idea. Save that, import it into here, and then you'll see me use the scale function. The quick way to do this is, as soon as it's imported, select the object and just press the letter S, and that will make it already be a scale tool. and then just scale it to your heart's desire, and then click the mouse button and it will stop being scale tool. Yeah, you're about to see that. So yeah, here it is. Going to select the object now. It should be. Shenanigans with the camera, it looks like. So object selected, press the letter S, scaling. So that's now obviously lined up to obscure everything underneath it, and it's a good idea to maybe bring it above the things and then just roll it back until you're happy with the layers that are showing. Just see how things look, because you might find that blocking out all but 2 of the layers looks the most impressive. So it's an artistic process. You don't know what it's going to look like until you get to this point. Yeah, using that view again to get to the top. And there's you can use the mouse in funny ways. I'm not precise with it at the moment in Blender. I'm getting better at it, but yeah, it looks like at this point my mouse and pressing the wrong key was conspiring against me to just make the screen scroll in the wrong way. But never mind, it's a learning curve, isn't it? We all have to just put our 10,000 hours in, or however many it is. I hope it's 10,000, because otherwise I sound silly then. Then again, 10,000 hours is a long time to put practice into something, so you probably get good at it. Anyway, so this is starting to take shape. It's starting to look like one of the previous examples you've probably seen, and so now we're going to need to, well, at some point soon, we're going to need to worry about the positioning of the camera, because when you render an animation, well, when you render anything in Blender, it'll render through the viewport of the camera, not the viewport that you're editing through. So you have to select the camera like that and just set the angles correctly. So you can do that by, positioning it manually with the mouse like this. But there are also, on the right over there, you'll see there are some numbers that keep changing when I move it, and you can edit them like this, and that makes it much more precise. If you want it to look exactly in a particular direction, then 0 degrees is very easy. 0 is down, obviously. And then it's just a matter of positioning the camera to be where you want it to make the most of the shot that you've set up, because that's basically what you've done. You've set up a shot like you would with a movie set, except in a 3D lens. I've probably gone over that ground already. So yeah, to do that, to make the camera change position over time like that, you have to use things called keyframes. Now I'll just say all you do is, with the timeline at 0, like I've just moved it to there, you would have the camera selected, press I, and then select location. There are other keyframes as well, I suggest you check them out. Then you'd move the timeline along to when you want the camera to stop, move it to the location you want it to stop at, and then put in another keyframe. And that's all you need to do to animate the thing. And this screen it's in now is the rendering mode. So that's now the rendered image that you'll see. And there it is. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, there's a lamp in there that I put in. I did one render, and then it was completely dark, so I put in a sun. And when you play with the lamps, there are settings on the right that you can make the appearance change. I like to have the shadows on because it gives those funky black and white outlines on the, well, you can see the image that starts rendering now. And it does that for every frame in the video for about 200 years. So yeah, be prepared for a long wait to get this done. But once it's finished, it depending on the output settings you use, you can make it do it individually as images, still images, or you can make it compile it straight into a movie file like a MPEG or something. Either's fine. I tend to go for individual image files, and then I make them into a movie file afterwards. That way, if anything happens and I need to stop rendering, I'll be able to start the render from exactly the right frame once I've done whatever needed to turn off my computer for or whatever. If you do it as a movie file, if you have to stop mid-render, you're buggered. You got to do it all again, rather than just the portion that it hadn't done yet. So yeah, I recommend do it as images and then make it into a video file afterwards. There's plenty of software solutions that can do that. That's only a Google search.